My life really is in a state of, I think limbo is the only word to describe it.
On Monday, Being There brings you a touching story from Wythenshawe Hospital's transplant centre.
The reality is that I can't plan for more than 2 hours ahead. If my bleeper goes off, I'm expected to be at Wythenshawe Hospital within 2 hours.
From the waiting to the celebrating, heartfelt, heartwarming. Being There presents Transplant, Monday, 10:40.
You're watching Granada as we join ITN for the National News at 10.
From the headquarters of ITN, News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
Inside the Russian White House with the Moscow rebels. South African sanctions lifted after Mandela's UN appeal. Firefighters say strike over pay is now inevitable. And how a British soldier risked his life to save a Bosnian child. Good evening. News at 10 has been to the heart of the power struggle in Moscow tonight, inside the White House, the Parliament building with President Yeltsin's opponents. The electric power has been cut off. Men with Kalashnikov rifles are patrolling the corridors in the dark, fearing an attack by government troops. This report, which includes an exclusive interview with President Yeltsin's rival Alexander Rutskoy, just in from our Moscow correspondent Julian Mannion.
Boris Yeltsin has always wanted the parliament he was saddled with to disappear. And tonight he turned the lights out, cutting the power and plunging opposition deputies who were still sitting in defiance of his suspension order into darkness. Yeltsin is trying to up the pressure without plunging into full-scale confrontation and possible bloodshed. At regular intervals, columns of special forces troops or police marched past the barricades, provoking jeers from the protesters still clustered around the White House. And the defenders are preparing for the worst, with squads of stone throwers standing ready with their ammunition. Inside the blacked-out parliament, a man who believes he is acting president, Alexander Rutskoy, who now needs camera lights to find his way to his office. Surrounding him, men with the guns which provoked this latest escalation of the crisis. It's now more than 12 hours since President Yeltsin ordered Parliament's guards disarmed. Tonight, Rutskoy's supporters are defying Yeltsin by candlelight. And by camera light as well as candle, Rutskoy told ITN in an exclusive interview that he is determined to see this confrontation through.
You know, I've always been a man of fixed principles, and I know how this will end. With a candle like this, burning as a memorial for democracy in Russia.
Tonight, Rutskoy and the rebel parliament are enjoying more support around the blacked-out building than at any time since the crisis began. But the numbers of demonstrators are still puny compared to the forces at Boris Yeltsin's disposal. The speakers here have reacted to the blackout of Parliament with contempt. We're not children, one of them's just said. We're not afraid of the dark. But no one here yet knows exactly how this nighttime war of nerves will end. Julian Mannion, News at 10, Moscow.
Our diplomatic editor James Mates joins us now live from Red Square. James, you have been in the Parliament and you saw Alexander Rutskoy. What was his mood and what do you make of what he said?
Well, we've just been back in there with him. He's tired, clearly showing the strain. But this is a man who was shot down in Afghanistan, who's been held prisoner of war there. Conditions in there are clearly difficult in the darkness, but they're nothing that he can't cope with. He was very defiant. And he told us quite clearly that he intends to stay in the White House for, as he put it, as long as necessary to defend what he sees as Russian democracy. Now, as I was leaving about half an hour ago, some of the lights were coming back on, so they appear to have found some sort of generator power. But in the light or in the dark, my clear impression was that there are men in there who aren't about to give up.
James, we've said this before. This is a high-risk gamble. What sort of assessment do you make of it tonight? A high-risk gamble on the part of Mr. Yeltsin. How is it going to end?
Well, it is a high-risk gamble if he intends to take this all the way. Now, nobody really knows whether he's trying to put the frighteners on these people, trying to get them dispirited and trying to persuade them that way to give up, or whether he really intends to send in the men that he's got now camped around the building. If he does, there's a very serious risk that he's going to create martyrs. Now, up until now, he has appeared to be winning this quite easily. No one's been taking a great deal of notice of anything that's been said in Parliament. The rest of Moscow is very peaceful. The rest of the country is very peaceful. If, however, there develops a firefight between his men outside and the heavily armed men inside, and people get killed, there is a very real risk that this will all go wrong for him, both with Western opinion and, much more importantly, with the opinion of ordinary Russian people who, up to now, have, passively at least, been backing him.
James Mates in Moscow, thank you. Nelson Mandela went to the United Nations in New York today and asked for the remaining economic sanctions against South Africa to be lifted. The ANC president said they had done their job and brought South Africa to the point where the transition to democracy is now enshrined in law. The United States and the Commonwealth responded immediately. Our Washington correspondent Bill Neely reports.
Nelson Mandela last addressed the UN just weeks after his release from prison. He appealed for sanctions to continue. Since then, so much has changed.
The countdown to democracy in South Africa has begun. The date for the demise of the white minority regime has been determined, agreed, and set.
It is time, he said, to help this progress towards democracy with a dramatic step.
We believe that the time has come when the international community should lift all economic sanctions against South Africa.
But he said the arms embargo and the ban on nuclear technology should stay until the formation of a new South African government. There was a standing ovation for the ANC leader from the Assembly and celebrations from representatives of other African countries. The symbolic walls of South Africa's isolation are falling, President de Klerk declaring himself pleased.
I'm very happy with it.
And predicting great progress on American television.
We expect wonderful economic growth once we've overcome our political difficulties, and we're on the brink of that.
Cleared on both sides of the aisle for unanimous passage.
Within hours of Mr. Mandela's call, the US Congress lifted all remaining sanctions against South Africa, President Clinton lending his support.
Obviously, the United States is going to be heavily influenced by the remarkable turn of events in South Africa.
Canada and the Commonwealth have now removed their trade, investment and financial embargoes. Both President de Klerk and Mr. Mandela are now in Washington to appeal to the IMF for loans. None of this will bring immediate relief to South Africa's battered economy, but today was another milestone along that road. Bill Neely, News at 10, Washington.
Later in the programme, we'll have a special report on Chief Buthelezi, the leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party, who is boycotting the negotiating process in South Africa. The firefighters' leaders said today a national strike was now inevitable after the failure of pay talks. Walkouts could begin in November. The employers, the local authorities, blame the government. Its public sector pay squeeze this year and next has stopped them paying the firefighters on the old formula. Our industrial correspondent Stephen Cape reports.
It was a clear message from the firefighters: no pay formula, no deal. The fire union leader spent 3 hours trying to get an agreement. In the end, no need to smile.
No, we have no agreement. No, at this stage.
Not everyone understood the implications of the day's events or Ken Cameron's declaration.
We're going to a recall conference tomorrow, and we're recommending that we go ahead with a straight ballot.
Cheers from the thousands of firefighters who had come here to lobby the talks. Disappointment too with the employers.
Do they remember Parliament, the Grand Hotel in Brighton? The best thing since sliced bread we were.
If you think we can believe those people, then, well, I'm just ashamed to be a part of the same organisation as they are.
Under the pay formula, firefighters are guaranteed rises in line with skilled workers. The government has imposed a 1.5% pay ceiling on the whole public sector, and the employers say they can't honour it this year. They can next.
It is not our wish, and never has been any wish, to destroy the pay formula. This has been imposed on us by government, and we intend to go to government along with the two leaders of the associations next Tuesday.
It was 15 years ago when firefighters first went on strike, then the army was called in. Fire chiefs who remember that dispute are concerned.
Although fire calls went down because the public took greater care, the fire losses went up. And I think that's the prospect we are faced with.
Today, there is no doubting the anger of firefighters, but can the union turn this into overwhelming support for a strike? Other public sector unions hoping to challenge the government will watch closely.
The Old Bailey resounded to cheers today as two youths were jailed for life for the murder of an Asian cab driver. Fiaz Mirza was beaten up and hurled into the Thames last February in what Judge Nina Lowry described as a brutal, callous and racially motivated attack. Adam Holloway was in court.
Married with 4 children, Fiaz Mirza went missing after picking up 2 West Ham United supporters from a memorial to Bobby Moore. 3 weeks later, the car and Mr Mirza's severely beaten body were dredged up from the River Thames in Docklands, an area where there have been many racially motivated attacks. 18-year-old Ricky Lee had already assaulted Mr Mirza a few weeks earlier. On the night, he and Mark Lee, who's 22, robbed Mr Mirza of £30 and bundled him into the boot of his cab. When he tried to escape, they hurled him into the river, where he drowned, too badly injured to save himself. Mark Lee's stepmother heard them giggling and laughing about Mr Mirza's final minutes and contacted the police. Summing up, Judge Nina Lowry described the murder of this unassuming man as dreadful and cruel, motivated at least in part by racial hatred. Mrs Mirza collapsed yesterday listening to details of his injuries.
Life, what's that to them? They come out, they probably do the same thing again. They shouldn't come out.
Leaving the court, Mark Lee made a cutthroat sign to friends of the dead man in the public gallery. Ricky Lee gave a V sign. Adam Holloway, News at 10 at the Old Bailey.
A British soldier in central Bosnia risked shellfire today to get a 9-year-old girl with shrapnel in her brain out of a makeshift hospital and on her way to proper treatment. Maria Chelem and 60 others seriously wounded or sick were evacuated from Nova Bila, a Croat enclave besieged by Muslims. ITN's Paul Davies was there.
Taking advantage of a rare lull in the fighting, British and Canadian soldiers made one more try to rescue wounded Croatian civilians from the makeshift hospital at Nova Bila. The youngest casualty to be evacuated, 9-year-old Maria Chelem, said goodbye to her father, who must stay behind. Maria has a piece of shrapnel embedded in her brain. Doctors at Nova Bila say only sophisticated surgery can help her. The shrapnel is only this big, Maria's father indicated, reassuring his only child that doctors in a big city hospital would be able to remove it. Despite the risk of another mortar attack, the evacuation of the frail and injured could not be rushed. But when a rocket landed close to the hospital, it was clearly time for another approach. Colour Sergeant Kevin Burton of the Prince of Wales Regiment decided the quickest way to get Maria to an ambulance and safety was to carry her himself. At the 4th attempt, the British and Canadians have managed to successfully evacuate civilians from Nova Bila Hospital. A small victory for the UN, but already the bed vacated by Maria has been filled. But tonight, for one little girl, there is hope, as she travels with her mother to the city of Split and an appointment with the surgeons who can make her better. Paul Davis, News at 10, Nova Bila, Bosnia.
Next on News at 10 tonight, driving off into the sunset, why Formula One's top driver says it's time to go. Europe's golfers edge ahead, how the fight for the Ryder Cup is hotting up. And Manchester bound with a song, how the losing team hope to make the best of their failed Olympic bid.
Always look on the right side of life.
And that was the last program in the present series. In 25 minutes, we'll be going over to the Open University.
It's always nice to come into somewhere warm if you've been freezing to death.
Breakaway here, it's a try! There'll be some celebrating tonight!
Hello? Hi, Mum, it's me. Sam, I've just been thinking about you. How's it going? It's really good. No, the food's great. No, it's warm, Mum. There's central heating. Rugby? Mum, I don't like rugby.
Toothpaste with mouthwash, please. 2 in 1. Toothpaste to help protect your teeth and mouthwash for fresh breath. Here's new Theramed Liquid. Protection and care for the teeth and gums with a minty fresh mouthwash. New Theramed Liquid. The 2 in 1 toothpaste and mouthwash. Its smooth liquid formula flows right around your mouth but doesn't drip. New Theramed Liquid. 2 in 1 toothpaste and mouthwash. Care and freshness all in one. A great double.
Auto Windscreens has over 400 mobile units at your service. For windscreens, they really are the guys.
My guys.
Wherever you are, for vehicle window and windscreen replacement, call the guys.
My guys.
So if your windscreen fails the MOT, call Auto Windscreens anytime free. So remember what you've seen, it's Auto Windscreens. Get wise, call the guys.
My guys.
Over the past 25 years, DFS have become famous for outstanding offers.
Free bubbly for all. Not one single penny. An extra £100 off.
30% off everything. Little wonder we've had success after success. It's this success that allows DFS to offer you 4 years interest-free credit.
4 years, yes, there's no mistake. 4 whole years free credit is on at DFS now. But you'll have to hurry, this great offer ends next weekend.
And it's on everything.
It was my grandfather's idea. Thought the place could do with a fine avenue of broadleaf limes. He never sat in their shade, he never saw the vista, but he had the vision.
There are still people who put others before themselves. At the Equitable Life, we pay no commission to middlemen, we have no shareholders, so you profit from our principles.
Oh, fancy your game? Right, I'll be Zob.
With no shareholders and no commission to middlemen, it's an equitable life, Henry.
Buckingham Palace said today it was far too early to say whether the Queen would open the Sydney Games in the year 2000. The city's winning bid has encouraged speculation that Australia may bring forward plans to become a republic. From Sydney, David Chater reports.
The sun came up over Sydney this morning to find the city still celebrating its Olympic victory. In the words of Australia's Prime Minister, it's given the country a new sense of its place in the world. But it's also given a new boost to the Republican debate in Australia. Paul Keating originally set his target date for removing the Queen as head of state here as 2001. But with the eyes of the world turning on Sydney for the Millennium Olympics, political observers are predicting there'll be an Australian president in place to open the Games at the turn of the century.
The Games will focus a great deal of attention, both from outside and within Australia, on Australia and on Australia's unique identity. And the only element in our constitutional structure which is not uniquely Australian is, of course, the monarchy.
The signs of Australia's historical links with the British Crown are being quickly overshadowed by the modern-day high-rising Sydney. Even the city's famous royal clock, shaped like Balmoral Castle, is in need of repairs. Every hour it displays the fate of one English monarch whose time had come. But the monarchists in Australia are predicting trouble.
I think personally if they did do away with the Queen, there'd be anarchy and blood on the streets. I honestly do.
Whichever way the Republican debate is resolved, Australia can now, in the words of its own Prime Minister, step out into the world with a new self-confidence. David Chater, News at 10, in the Olympic city of Sydney.
The man who led Manchester's losing bid hit back today at critics who said that London had a better chance of winning. Bob Scott suggested that jealousy was behind the comments, that Manchester wasn't glamorous enough to host the Olympics. Howell Jones reports.
The man behind Britain's Olympic bid snatched victory from defeat in Monte Carlo today. For Bob Scott, one last photo opportunity on a damp beach before the flight home.
Always look on the bright side of life.
The unofficial anthem of the Manchester bid. There were a few words of consolation from the bid's pilot, a man now considering his future carefully.
It's not just that I'm looking for a job now. I really do believe we've come back to Britain holding our heads up very high indeed.
A hero's welcome in Manchester, but the disappointment of last night's defeat still hurt.
Everybody was really disappointed, but the people who have been in sport, in football like myself, you have your ups and downs, you know, you win and you lose important matches and you get used to it and you recognise it. But but all the staff from the office that have never experienced this before, you know, it shattered them, I think, last night.
Inside the Manchester 2000 office today, the goodwill messages all said the same: try again.
If there are other cities who now want to put their bid in and come up with their proposals, then the government and the BOA will look at them very seriously this time.
This is Manchester's Constellation Prize, a new velodrome just part of £275 million worth of investment brought here by the Olympic bid, in a city which now has an Olympian-sized area of undeveloped land awaiting a brighter future. Howell Jones, News at 10, Manchester.
Other news, Scottish nationalists are promising a high-profile campaign against the imposition of VAT on domestic fuel. SNP leader Alex Salmond told delegates at the party's annual conference in Dunoon that VAT on fuel was now at the top of the political agenda. It's now known that a British woman was among the 44 people killed in the Alabama train crash on Wednesday. 2 other Britons remain unaccounted for. The dead woman was named as 21-year-old Lorna Main, a student at Edinburgh University. And hundreds of mourners paid tribute today to our former colleague Leonard Parkin at a funeral service in Yorkshire. Leonard died of cancer earlier this week. He was 64. While Nelson Mandela and President de Klerk were in New York today asking for sanctions to be lifted, the most formidable obstacle to their plans for South Africa, Chief Buthelezi, was making an uncompromising speech in the KwaZulu homeland. Chief Buthelezi, leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party, said the Zulus must be ready to defend their independence. Without that, he said, there'd be no peace and prosperity. This threat to South Africa's peaceful transition, the open rivalry between Mandela and Buthelezi, surfaced when I saw the Zulu leader in South Africa. These are the people who provide Chief Buthelezi with the vast bulk of his support, fiercely proud and determined to maintain the integrity of their nation. Their leader has decided now to defy Mandela and de Klerk and to stay out of talks leading to democratic elections next April. And when I saw him last week in his office in Ulundi in KwaZulu, he was unrepentant about that.
There's no way in which we're going to participate where the process is flawed, so flawed in fact, that in fact our presence there would just give undue respectability to the process that we were there and it was democratic when it wasn't democratic.
Could you explain to me precisely what you mean by saying the process is flawed?
The first thing that must be resolved before everything else is the issue of violence. Because the violence in this country has reached levels which are completely unacceptable. And I cannot see how anyone can hope to hold a democratic and free election in the midst of the kind of violence that we've heard for 9 years, which is going on unabating.
Do you get on with Mr. Mandela?
On a personal basis, we get on like a house on fire. You know, it's very strange, you know, that while we appear to be, you know, at daggers drawn, I mean, from the perceptions, but when we meet man to man, really, we get on like a house on fire, you know, because the friendship, the affection that we have had for each other for decades normally surfaces once we were together. But of course, as soon as we part, Mr. MacDonald, it disappears as well.
His view probably is that you haven't accepted the fact that he's going to be president of South Africa.
Oh, so you've decided that?
Well, no.
The ITN has decided so.
No, ITN, I'm afraid. I'm afraid ITN has not decided anything at all.
Yes.
But it's not illogical to assume that if the current process reaches its conclusion, Mr. Mandela will be president of South Africa.
It's immaterial for me who is president. I'm not so ambitious. If it's his president, I wouldn't be bothered. You know, if it was a democratic election, if it was Mr. de Klerk or anyone else or Mr. Makwetu, I don't mind at all. That's why I've said when people put it to me, are you prepared to serve under Mr. Mandela? I've said that, of course, I'm prepared to serve under him, provided that if I'm elected, he would also be prepared to serve under me.
Mr. Mandela has said that after the election, in another 6 months or so, the 4.5 billion rand given to you by the de Klerk government will dry up, and that will be the effective end of your influence. And where will you be then?
In fact, that is a very interesting message, you know. I'm very, very interested, because the 5 billion budget, of course, is not Mangosuthu Buthelezi's money. It's money for the old pensioners, it's money for the benches for schools, it's money for clinics. And now they personalize it and say that it will dry up. It's very interesting. It really strengthens my resolve to resist, you know, to the bitter end.
Buthelezi's uncompromising rhetoric is informed by the status he achieved as his country's most prominent voice in the years before Mandela was released. He proudly shows his visitors, through the photographs in his cabinet room, the leading world figures he's known. The fact is, though, that now, in the new political climate, his star has been eclipsed by Mandela's. Here, Europe's golfers took an early lead today in their bid to win back the Ryder Cup from the United States. After the fog had lifted, Europe took first blood, and at the close they led by 4 points to 3. Robin White reports.
After delays caused by fog, Sam Torrance opened Europe's account in the Ryder Cup, but he and Mark James could not contain the United States' Lanny Wadkins and Corey Pavin. No such problems for Ian Woosnam and the US Masters champion Bernhard Langer, romping to victory against Paul Azinger and Payne Stewart. Or for Colin Montgomery and Nick Faldo, overhauling former American captain Raymond Floyd and his partner Fred Couples. A rare defeat, though, for the all-Spanish pairing of Ballesteros and Olazabal by the Americans Love and Kite brought the morning's tally to evens. The Spaniards retrieved their honour in the afternoon, beating the same opponents convincingly. A win, too, for newcomer Peter Baker and Ian Woosnam gave Europe a 1-point lead. The European team should sleep happily enough tonight, although memories of this shot by Colin Montgomery may keep greenkeeping staff awake rather longer.
And finally, Alain Prost, one of motor racing's finest drivers, said today he's quitting at the end of the season. If the 38-year-old Frenchman wins Sunday's Portuguese Grand Prix, he'll leave the world of Formula One with 4 championships to his credit. John Draper reports.
Prost made his surprise announcement after a practice run in Portugal, which put him in provisional pole position for Sunday's Grand Prix. He aims to blaze a trail out of Formula One with his 4th World Championship possibly this weekend. At a press conference announcing his decision, Prost said he wanted to leave racing with a smile on his face. He certainly has reason to be pleased with his successes on the track, stretching back to 1981 when he won his first Grand Prix in France. Since then, he's taken part in a total of 196, winning 51 times and notching up 40-lap records to give him 3 World Championships. Prost's career has been marked by a personal rivalry with Brazilian Ayrton Senna. 3 years ago in Japan, Senna crashed into Prost. It caused huge controversy as Senna had made the same manoeuvre there the previous year. It cost the Frenchman the championship. Senna won it. Prost's studious approach to driving led fans to dub him the Professor.
He was so methodical, he worked it out and he didn't rush off, and I think that all the races he won were by great skill and also great thought, and it does require a man's intelligence also to win.
Alain Prost will compete in his last ever Grand Prix in Australia next November.
That's news at 10 tonight, and for this week, see you Monday. From all of us here at ITN, good night and have a great weekend.
Hello, good evening. You will be able to get out and about this weekend. There'll be some sunshine for us all, but there'll be some fairly beefy showers around as well. Showers are often sort of hit and miss. You can get away with a dry day, but I think you'll need to be very lucky to manage that tomorrow. The showers fairly widespread and really quite heavy in places, especially up in the north and west. A slightly better chance of getting away with a dry day on Sunday. The showers more scattered and a little bit more in the way of sunshine. There's been a thicker band of cloud and rain coming down from the northwest today across Northern Ireland and Scotland this morning. The rain's tending to die out now, but there's still a few showers along that thicker band of cloud. The southeastern corner staying dry, rather misty, but not as foggy as last night. And further west, beyond that band of cloud, a lot of clear skies, temperatures down to around 3, quite chilly up in the north, and just the odd shower up in the northwest. So quite a mixed picture to start the day tomorrow. Still that slightly thicker band of cloud hovering in central and southeastern parts, but the showers there gradually dying away, that cloud breaking up, and then it's pretty much the same story for us all. A mixture of sunshine and showers, but most of the showers will certainly be on the western side of Britain, where they will be quite heavy and perhaps even thundery. Now the temperatures for tomorrow, well, not too bad. It's around 14 for most people, that's about 57. Slightly higher, perhaps 16 in the south, that's 61. Now for Sunday, well, it starts today with a lot of showers around in the south and west. I think you find elsewhere quite a bright story. As we go through the day, the showers in the southwest gradually dying away, but more showers beginning to appear on the eastern side. So quite a mixture, a lot of sunshine around on Sunday, but still some showers to dodge. More showers on Saturday. So enjoy the weekend, whatever the weather. Good night.
Next week, GMTV enjoys the thrilling movie life of LA, investigates strange true cases of the paranormal, discovers why Poirot is taking a break, how Lady Jane copes without Lovejoy, and meets the troublemaker back in the street. Plus £25,000 cash to be won.
GMTV, a great way to start the day.
In a moment, Granada news, followed by a look forward to this last weekend of Manchester Live, and then at 11:15, more teenage traumas among the young generation of Beverly Hills.
How close can you get to a leopard? This close, or this close? Animal World brings you closer. A really in-depth look at the world's mammals that focuses on a single animal every week. Animal World explores the life or death issues of survival now and in the future. With 10p from every part one sold going to Worldwide Fund for Nature, Animal World builds into the complete family reference to our planet's most fascinating creatures. Animal World.
Mr. Kipling awaited my reaction to his delicious apple pies, to the dome of nicely browned and crumbly pastry, the scrumptious filling of that great pie maker, the noble Bramley. Well, he asked me. Mr. Kipling said could any apple pie possibly offer more? Ah, he said, that brings me to my other apple pies, with a new light custard inside.
Just when I need someone to love me, just when I think the world's too cold.
Sheba. Delicious pieces of meat, carefully selected and prepared in the way your cat will love.
There you are in my heart, standing by me once again.
Sheba. The recipe of love.
Reporting from and to the northwest, this is Granada News with Andrew Brittain.
Good evening. Manchester's Olympic bid team are back in the city tonight, down but not out. The chairman, Bob Scott, says Manchester must change its image if it's to bid for the Games a third time. Andy Gill has this report.
Bob Scott led his team back into Manchester Airport this afternoon, defeated but proud. On Granada tonight, he said it's too early to say whether there'll be a third bid, but it would have to be better.
We will have to make a major shift in the third bid from the second bid. We will have to actually not talk about changing our image, we'll actually have to change it.
Despite losing, Manchester has gained much. The new National Velodrome will host the World Cycling Championships in 3 years' time.
There's no doubt that Manchester's Olympic bid has brought it real, tangible benefits, but it's going to be a tough decision over whether to bid for the Games in the year 2004. Politics will no doubt play a part again. For example, after Atlanta and Sydney, can the IOC award a third Olympiad in a row to an English-speaking city?
At the Velodrome and elsewhere, there is support for a third bid.
I hope they do, because I said, it would mean more work for the building industry.
British Spirit, go for it again, fight.
I think they've had it now, twice, going for it twice and failing both times. I don't think it's realistic.
Award-winning newspaper columnist Richard Littlejohn, speaking on LBC Radio, had his own ideas about why Manchester lost. He said it's a dull provincial city. The only thing you can say for Manchester is that it's not Liverpool and it has a marginally better human rights record than Peking. Mr. Littlejohn declined to appear on Granada television to explain his comments further.
A man is to appear before Cheshire magistrates charged with attempting to murder a policeman. Cheshire PC Bob Milligan was stabbed in the chest after he and a woman officer answered a call in the Winterley area of Crewe last night. He was taken to Leighton Hospital, but he was released this afternoon. Spying charges against a Territorial Army officer from Lancashire have been dropped. 32-year-old Captain Carol Matchell from Heysham in Lancashire was arrested in November last year and held in solitary confinement for 4 months. The Crown Prosecution Service has now decided to drop the charges because of insufficient evidence, but Captain Matchell may still face an army court-martial. 2 women have been seriously injured and 1 is on the critical list after a road accident in Page Moss on Merseyside. A stolen car was being followed by police when it hit another car on Princess Drive. The driver, a 28-year-old pregnant woman, was only slightly injured, but her mother and mother-in-law were both seriously hurt. They're now in Broad Green Hospital. Police are questioning the driver of the stolen car. A group of women artists are staging an all-night vigil in Liverpool's Albert Dock after their exhibition was closed down, with one of their members occupying the hall. The exhibition, called Women in Conflict, was due to run until next Wednesday at the Grand Hall. Management at the Dock claimed some of the paintings were explicit and ordered them to be removed. The artists rolled up the controversial paintings, but the exhibition was still shut down. A polite robber who used a water pistol to hold up a building society office in Knutsford has been jailed for 5 years. The court heard how 36-year-old John Sims from Knutsford had passed a note asking for money with "thank you" written on it to the cashier. Sims had moved to Knutsford to make a fresh start after 18 previous court appearances in the West Country. And finally tonight, traditional regional delicacies like Blackpool Rock and mushy peas are safe from the hands of Brussels bureaucrats, according to government sources. The Germans have been trying to restrict the use of food colouring, saying they could be unhealthy. But British health officials, who are arguing Britain's case in Brussels on Monday, say they're confident foods like mushy peas will remain a lustrous green. Just how I like them. That's how it looks tonight. We'll have more news tomorrow lunchtime, just after 1 o'clock. For the moment, a very good night.
Showery bursts of rain will continue to trouble the region through the evening, though most of them will be light, and even these will die away during the night. Tomorrow will start dry and bright, with any mist patches clearing quickly. However, it's not likely to stay dry for long, with showers developing as the morning wears on. The showers will become heavier and more widespread during the afternoon, with only a very few places escaping with a completely dry day. Top temperatures will be around 14 degrees centigrade. Now the outlook for the next 4 days. There may still be a few showers around at first on Sunday, but most of the day will be dry. Monday will also be dry, but cloud will slowly increase later, and rain is expected on Tuesday. Now in Granada, a look at computer and video art on Manchester Live.
It's in the can.
Book 2 is an extension. It's carried on from Woo, which took place last year for the Bonnettons Festival in Manchester. And that piece was actually designed as a piece of televisual art, in a way, actually breaking the boundaries of television, being used as an installation piece. It utilised 12 projections on video, which were shown on the windows of Excalibur House. This year, we're actually moving the whole installation to Asia House, which we're in at the moment, and we're actually achieving more windows. We're actually moving to 16 windows this year. We've taken the theme of looking at history from the Big Bang, the inception of the universe, until the present day, which we term as postmodern paranoia. There's also a running theme through the whole thing of art, of religion, of political influence, and of scientific influence. Those are the 4 threads that we've been working on.
Well, I'm actually a trainee on Woo. And basically that involves editing, learning about the camera, doing some lighting, but we've also had some creative input. Costumes, it's basically, there's a pile of material. We need a Rococo costume. So staple it together and see what it looks like, and then use the lighting in that to enhance it.
I've been sort of in charge of the animation graphics, and I've been getting stuff, designing, creating stuff that we've not actually got film of, like prehistory, any dinosaurs, Renaissance, a lot of things like that.
Last year, it achieved a reasonable response, probably about 2,000 people. This year, we're anticipating that we'll probably get quadruple that, hopefully.
There are all sorts of themes in the work that's on show. These vary from artificial life, computer technology, the natural world, and art, all sort of mixed together in a strange sort of electronic television environment. And the idea is that we're watching artificial life growing and breeding in this virtual space that exists within the computer. I describe the three-dimensional forms inside the computer as being like ghosts of sculptures, in the sense that they are three-dimensional, they can be viewed from any viewpoint, you can turn them around, you can go inside them, but they don't actually exist in physical form. And that, to me, is a fascinating idea that in the 20th century, conventional sculpture with stone becomes redundant when one can create three-dimensional virtual objects in an imaginary space inside the computer. And I think these are the sorts of themes that I'm trying to address in my work. Having created an imaginary evolutionary system, there has to be some criteria of selection so that not all forms survive. And in this world, I am the selector, in effect the predator that goes through deciding which forms live and which forms don't live. So it's evolution guided by aesthetics. And this raises many questions about whether one can kill computer forms that don't really exist. And that's one of the interesting aspects to the work.
I'm here in this enormous tent, and I'll be here again on Sunday with Paulette for Manchester Live.
Yes, indeed. Interstellar will be playing live, and there's comedy from the man in those stripy trousers.
Stand-up comedy at the Dream Tent with Jeff Green.
And the heat is on for the finalists in the It's a Rap competition. Who will walk away with that recording contract and £1,000? With the best in entertainment and events from around the city, you can't afford to miss the final Manchester Live, Sunday at 10:35.
Next tonight, Dylan tries to sort out his relationship with Brenda on Beverly Hills 90210.